Hello students, I hope you all are great. Today we will be discussing the important news articles of 2nd of March 2022. I am your educator Prithviraj Singh. Let us begin with the important news articles. Guys, we know that it's the 6th day of Russian invasion in Ukraine. Many civilians have died and it has led to refugee crisis, and it has been predicted by UNHCR that it would lead to more than 6 lakh refugees, leaving their home state and moving to some other neighboring countries. At the same time, we also saw that Indian student, MBBS student, also was killed in a place called as Kharkiv in Ukraine. You know, guys, that 6 days back Russia invaded Ukraine and it is trying to surround Kyiv and hold power over Kyiv, correct? This area that you see on the screen, the orange shades, depict the Russian occupation, right? That means these are the areas which are being occupied by the Russian forces, and the lines are the areas which are already being occupied by the Russian forces before this invasion, right? For example, Crimea. And as far as this region is concerned, we all know that the eastern Ukraine is called as Donbass, and it has 2 cities, Donetsk and Luhansk. They are being held by pro-Russian separatists, right? So we have all learned about how the pro-Russian rebels were infighting with the Kyiv government or Ukrainian government, and which led to civil war in the year 2013-14, and Minsk agreements were being signed, or Minsk Accord were being signed to pacify this civil war, right? And in which ways, after the Russian invasion, you can see that Russian forces are invading Ukraine from these 3 directions, and these are the areas which are already being occupied by Russia, correct? Now the sites which you can see in the star form are the sites where Russia has done the bombing and the air strikes. So you can see that Belarus, which is a ally of Russia, its territory is being used to surround Kyiv, right? So it's being said that around 65 kilometer long Russian convoy is advancing on Kyiv, right? And they are to capture Kyiv in very soon, right? Now the problem here is that this invasion has led to huge refugee crisis, and the agency of the United Nations, UNHCR, has predicted that around more than 6 lakh Ukrainians would flee to the neighboring countries of Poland, right? Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania and Moldova, right? So this agency is an international agency under United Nations, also called as UNHCR, or United Nations High Commission for Refugees, right? And it is being headed by the chief or the head, right, or the commissioner of the the UNHCR, and the present head or the chief is Filippo Grandi. And I expect a question on this. They may ask you that who is the present head or the chief of UNHCR? So it is Filippo Grandi, correct? Now, as I said, that this would lead to Europe's largest refugee crisis, right? And UNHCR has requested the neighboring countries to to give access to the refugees fleeing Ukraine. A bit of information about UNHCR. It aids and protects refugees, forcibly displaced communities and stateless people, right? And to assist in their voluntary repatriation, local integration or resettlement to a third country, right? So in this sense, it provides the assistance, aid, protection to the refugees, also to the forcibly displaced communities, right? So those who are asylum seekers who are internally displaced persons or stateless people, so their protection is being, given by UNHCR. And guys, UNHCR has also won the Nobel Prize for Peace twice, right? So it is a very important detail which can be asked in the examination. UNHCR has won the Nobel Peace Prize in the year 1954 and the year 1981, right? And it was formed in the year 1951, under the Refugee Convention. It also has offices in 135 nations, and it has office in New Delhi and Chennai. And it first established its presence in India in the year 1981, right? So it has its regional office in India at New Delhi and Chennai, right? So these are some important details about UNHCR. It is headquartered at Geneva, Switzerland, right? So coming to the next news article, early introduction of accountability bill is sought in Rajasthan. Guys, the Rajasthan government in the recently published state budget has announced, to bring the right to service guarantee and accountability bill, right? So they may ask you that which among the following states has decided to bring right to service guarantee and accountability bill, right? So it is the state of Rajasthan, right? Now this bill would ensure that the citizens or the residents of the state would get the benefits of the government schemes, right? So there are many government schemes like Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, right? There are Ayushman scheme, many more government schemes. So the monetary benefits under the government schemes would be ensured by a bill, which would be very soon tabled in the State Assembly of Rajasthan. And the bill is Right to Service Guarantee and Accountability Bill, correct? At the same time, the government of Rajasthan also announced that they would be coming up with the equivalent of Manrega, which is there in the rural areas. So the equivalent of Manrega in urban areas, right? And they would name it Indira Gandhi Urban Employment Guarantee Scheme, right? So Indira Gandhi Urban Employment Guarantee Scheme, correct? So as you have Manrega, which provides the guaranteed 100 days of employment, right? Within, right? So similarly, there would be a Indira Gandhi Urban Employment Guarantee Scheme. That means 100 days guaranteed employment in urban areas, right? So they have decided an outlay of 800 crore rupees in the budget speech, right? So these are the two important announcements which were being made in the recently held budget session in Rajasthan Vidhan Sabha. And a NGO called as MKSS, a very famous NGO, Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan, and its leader Nikhil De has said that the enactment of this legislation, that is Right to Service Guarantee and Accountability Bill, would ensure that the government, would give its benefit to the residents of the state, and would also ensure the effective implementation of other budgetary announcements at the grassroots level, correct? So important news article, and I expect a question on this. So guys, these are the tools of accountability and the tools of citizens participation. As you can see, accountability, transparency, people's participation are very important tools to make government accountable to the people, right? And therefore there are many acts which are being and agencies and the departments of the government which ensure that the executive is held accountable. For example, RTI Act of 2005, then Right to Time Bound Delivery of Services Act, correct? Similarly, centralized public grievance redressal and monitoring system, right? So it is CP GRAMS, or Centralized Public Grievance Redress and Monitoring System. Similarly, you have Protection of Whistleblowers Act, correct? On the other hand, you also have the tools of citizens participation, like referendum, initiative, signature campaign, so on and so forth, right? You know that popular initiative is one such mechanism is still there in the country Switzerland, and they have popular initiative where people, you know, also can introduce some amendments to the constitution, right? Coming to the next news article, guys, as we in the earlier articles we did understood that India is in a difficult situation, is in a dilemma, because of the fact that after Russian invasion into Ukraine, India is in fix, right? Because India in the last decade has, you know, tilted towards the West, especially when there is an imminent threat by China or from China, right? At the same time, we know that Russia is the biggest arms supplier to India, right? So therefore, the government of India is in fix, is in dilemma that which side to, you know, prefer. As I said that Russia, more than 60% of the arms imports, right, come from Russia. And we know an act called as CAATSA, Countering American Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. I repeat, Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. Now this act was being cleared by the American Congress in the year 2017, and it clearly said that because we know that Crimea was annexed by Russia in the year 2014, post that America imposed sanctions over Russia, correct, under CAATSA. So under Donald Trump administration in the year 2017, CAATSA Act came into being, which clearly said that if any country enters into a military trade with Russia, Iran, and North Korea. So if any country enters into a military trade with Russia, Iran, and North Korea, and these are the countries which are the adversaries of America, correct? Russia, because of its invasion, illegitimate invasion of Crimea in the year 2014. North Korea, because of North Korea and Iran, because of their secret nuclear operations, right? Now the act says that if any country enters into military agreement or military trade with these countries, right, America would impose sanctions over that country, right? Now we know that, as I said, that Russia is the highest arms supplier, to India, and into the year 2018 we signed a military agreement with Russia of S-400 missiles, right? So these are surface to air missiles. They are being exploded on they are being exploded from the surface, and they are shot. They shoot the enemy in the air, right? Surface to air missiles, correct? So they are being launched from the surface and they explode in the air, right? So it's S-400E. Now because India is not taking any stand over the Ukrainian issue, America is threatening India that it would impose CAATSA, right? It would impose sanctions under CAATSA, right? Because India is entering into military trade agreement with Russia when it buys or purchases S-400 missiles, correct? So there are defense deals which India had entered with Russia, S-400 and AN-32, right? Now AN-32 is also a transport fleet of Indian Air Force, and it is being purchased from Ukraine, correct? I hope it is clear. Now guys, as you can see, 5 S-400 units would be purchased from Russia, and it was a $5 billion deal, right? And in this way, you can see the 5 bubbles, right, here plus here, right? So in this way, India would be protecting its borders from Pakistan, right, and China, and again in the northeast, right, it can protect its border against China, correct? So India wants a system as a deterrent against China and to gain edge over a traditional rival Pakistan, right? So in order to counter Pakistan and China, this deal is very, very important. And correct. So as far as its range is concerned, it has a range of 600 kilometers with a maximum altitude of 30 kilometers and maximum target speed of 4.8 kilometers per second, correct? So these are the important details, and there is a probability of the question being asked on these lines, correct? And so these are the things which are discussed in this depiction. I hope it is clear. So in 2018, India signed a $5 billion deal with Russia to buy 5 units of S-400 surface-to-air missile defense system, right? And it is a type of modern long-range surface-to-air missile, also called as MLR-SAM, right? Modern long-range, right? As you can see, guys, from the screen, that its range is 600 kilometers, correct? So that is the reason why it is called as modern long range. Long range means 600 kilometer surface to air missile. So they may ask you that S-400 is which among the following type of missile systems, right? So it is a long range, modern long range surface to air missile system, correct? And it is considered much ahead of the US developed terminal high altitude area defense system, also called as THAAD, right? So it is much more powerful and much more advanced as compared to THAAD. And the system can engage all types of aerial targets, including aircraft, unmanned aerial vehicles or UAV, and ballistic and cruise missiles within the range of 400 kilometers and at an altitude of up to 30 kilometers, correct? So this is about the CAATSA, which I just explained, right? So these are the three countries which are the adversaries of America under the CAATSA Act of 2017. Coming to the definitely the more elaborate details about the same article, Russia, as I said, is a traditional supplier of India, and more than 60% of Indian military inventory comes from Russia, right? So all the fighter jets, the tanks, helicopters, submarines, they all are being procured from Russia, right? And guys, Russia is also at present manufacturing 2 stealth frigates for the Navy, and they would be delivered next year onwards, correct? While another 2 are being manufactured by the Goa Shipyard Limited under technology transfer, correct? So there are stealth frigates for Navy, naval ships. At the same time, India has also signed a separate deal with Ukraine for 8 Zoria mesh project gas turbine engines for the frigates, right? So guys, with Ukraine also we have important military assignments, and one such assignment is the dispatch of 8 Zoria mesh project gas turbine engines. Now these are the engines which are used in the naval ships, correct? And it is expected that they would be delivered by the year 2026, correct? India is also looking to receive the 3rd Akula class nuclear attack submarine. Guys, Akula class nuclear powered submarines are the most powerful submarines, and they can attack the target in the water, and they are nuclear powered attack submarine. Doesn't mean that they would be launching the nuclear missiles, but they are nuclear powered in the sense that they are being operated or they are being run by the nuclear energy, correct? Nuclear energy. So India is also looking to receive the 3rd Akula class nuclear attack submarine, also called as SSN. N is nuclear powered, right? And SSN is the terminology being used by the NATO forces. It is also called in Russia Project 971 or Hunter Killer submarines. So very important, and they may ask you on this line, on these lines, right? So the Akula class nuclear attack submarine SSN, also called as Project 971 or hunter killer submarine. So these are also being procured from the Russia, and we expect its delivery or its dispatch by the year 2025, right? So it is nuclear powered submarine, right? So we are clear with S-400, right? It is a surface to air missile, right? It is modern long range surface to air missile, number one. Number two, the 4 stealth frigates, the naval ships, correct, 2 directly developed and manufactured by Russia, and the remaining 2 would be manufactured by the Goa Shipyard Limited under the technology transfer from Russia. As far as our military agreement with Ukraine is concerned, we have procured 8 Zoria mesh sprocket gas turbine engines, right, and they would be delivered in the year 2026. And similarly India would also be receiving the 3rd Akula class nuclear attack submarines, also called as Project 971 or hunter killer submarine, and they would be dispatched in the year by the year 2025, right? I hope it is clear. So some facts about the deals with Ukraine. India would be procuring 100 AN-32 transport aircraft, right? AN-32 transport aircraft of the Indian Air Force under a deal which was finalized in the year 2009, right? So these are the AN-32 transport aircrafts. You can see, guys, in the higher altitude regions where the accessibility becomes very difficult, the AN-32 range of transport aircraft would help the Indian Air Force to reach the inaccessible regions and supply the logistics, correct? So therefore they are transport aircraft, AN-32 class, right? And they are being purchased from Ukraine, correct? Guys, recently government has also announced the geo-tagging of Waqf properties, right, which are related with the Islamic foundation. Geo-tagging of Waqf properties, correct? And geo-tagging is nothing but a process of adding geographical identification metadata, right, to various media such as geotagged photograph or video, website or location, correct? So in this sense, the geographical identification of the Waqf properties would be would be done, and this would help the government in identifying the Waqf properties in India, right? As you can see, in 2017 the government announced that under the Ministry of Minority Affairs, a Qawmi Waqf Board's Taraqqiyati scheme was launched. It is already being launched in the year 2017 under Ministry of Minority Affairs. Qawmi Waqf Board Taraqqiyati scheme was launched, right? And it has yet again revised its deadline from March 2022 to November 2023, right? So although it is a long delayed project, and the government has in fact announced this scheme in the year 2017, but its modalities, its formalities and its operation is yet to be seen, and it has extended the deadline from March 2022 till November 2023, right? The objective of the government is to map the immovable assets under the Waqf boards, right, so as to ensure their proper utilization and monetization, right? So when the geographical identification or tagging would happen for the Waqf properties, it would be easier for the government to locate them, to utilize them, to monetize them, correct? In this way, the government had also speeded up its process of Central Waqf Council, right, which is an autonomous body under the ministry, and has called for the bids, right? So in this way, the government is as per their estimates, they believe that there are 6 lakh Waqf properties, out of which in the last 5 years 2 lakh properties have already been geo-tagged, right? So in this way, government would it would help the government to identify, to locate, to monetize the Waqf properties, right? And for the same, they formed Qawmi Waqf Boards Tarakkiyati scheme in the year 2017. Correct. I hope it is clear. Now, guys, the next news on the screen. Former American official, Mike Pompeo, the former American Secretary of State, would be, visiting Taiwan. We know, guys, Taiwan is an independent autonomous region, and although it is a disputed territory because China claims Taiwan to be its own part, right? As it claims Arunachal Pradesh, as it claims Tibet, as it claims the northeast part of Ladakh, which they call Aksai Chin, right? So, but we know that Taiwan has a very good and friendly relation with America. It's a capitalist nation, and in this backdrop, American officials are visiting Taiwan because it's being believed that when Russia is invading Ukraine, it would motivate China also to invade Taiwan. So there are imminent threat of China invading Taiwan. Guys, as you can see here, Taiwan is separated from China through a narrow passage of water called as Taiwan Strait, correct? And it is north to South China Sea and south to Japan, correct? Now, these are the missile deployments which are being deployed by China on its border. These are surface to air missile systems, cruise missile systems over its coastal areas. And we know that there is as I said, that there is an imminent threat of China invading or using force to annex self-governing democratic Taiwan, correct? So therefore the American officials are visiting Taiwan, and definitely Taiwan enjoys strong support from America, correct? So coming to the next news article. Guys, there have been clashes in the newly created South Sudan. We know that South Sudan is the youngest country and it was created in the year 2011, right? Now, the United Nations mission in South Sudan, also called by the acronym UNMISS, has said that there have been conflicts and clashes in Sudan, South Sudan, right? I'll just explain this. Guys, there is the pic that you can see here is the president of South Sudan named Salva Kiir Mayardit, right? And he's the president of South Sudan since 2011, right? I repeat again, the president of South Sudan is Salva Kiir Mayardit. Salva Kiir Mayardit, right? So he wears this cap, right? This round cap, and guys, this is being gifted by the previous American president George W. Bush Jr., right? Salva Kiir Mayardit is the president of South Sudan, and is there in the office since 2011, right? Now, the vice president of the South Sudan is Riek Machar. I repeat, the vice president of South Sudan is, as you can see on the screen, the vice president of South Sudan is Riek Machar, right? Riek Machar, and he's there in the office since February 2020, correct? Although he was there in the office also previously till 2015, right? Now, there have been clashes between the followers of the president and the vice president, correct? And this has led to many civilians being killed, correct? Now, the followers of the vice president Riek Machar started a party or a movement called as Sudan People's Liberation Movement. I repeat, the followers of the vice president of South Sudan Riek Machar started a party called as Sudan People's Liberation Movement Army in Opposition, right? Also called as SPLM AIO, right? Now, the commanders of this party, SPLM, two important and prominent commanders recently joined the the supporters of Salwa Kiir Mayardit, right? And they were being inducted as the into the army of the president, right? And this has led to several clashes between the followers of the vice president and the president. As you can see, the main deal provides for integration of the commanders' forces into the national army. In the year 2000, or the month of January 2022, this year, the president of South Sudan, Salwa Kiir, entered into a pair of agreements with two powerful opposition commanders, right, who had recently broken away from Kiir's rival, Vice President Riek Machar. So, as I said, guys, the two commanders of important, prominent chiefs or commanders of the Vice President party has broken away and has joined the president's party, right? And this has led to all the conflict, right, which resulted into more than 400 civilians being killed, right? As you can see, South Sudan has the third largest refugee crisis after Syria and Afghanistan, and around 3.7 million people have fled their homes, as you can see, and 6 out of 10 South Sudanese refugees are children, right? So again, UNHCR, United Nations, Human Rights Commission, correct? Commission on the Refugees would take care of this refugee crisis. As you can see, guys, South Sudan has seen 1.9 million people internally displaced, and many are being have fled the other countries like Sudan, Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, and Democratic Republic of the Congo. I expect a question on this. There is a high probability of question being asked on these lines, right? The incumbent prime minister of this state, South Sudan, is Osman Hussein. I repeat, the present or the incumbent prime minister, although he is the acting prime minister, is Osman Hussein, right? So this is the topography of South Sudan. As you can see, it was a newly created state in the year 2011. In the east, you have Ethiopia, south Kenya, Uganda, southwest you have Democratic Republic of the Congo, then west Central African Republic. So it is, in this sense, it is a landlocked country, right? On the north you have Sudan, on the northwest you have Chad, right? Guys, as far as its capital is concerned, the capital of South Sudan is Khartoum, or also called as Khartoum, right? And it is located at the confluence of two tributaries of Nile, that is White Nile, which flows north from Lake Victoria, and Blue Nile, right? Blue Nile, which flows from Lake Tana in Ethiopia, right? So the White Nile and the Blue Nile, joins together and then becomes Nile, and it drops its water in the Mediterranean Sea, right? So in this way, the two tributaries of Nile, White Nile and the Blue Nile, they join together, and together they are called as Al Mogran or Al Mukran, also called as confluence. And from there, it is being called as Nile and continues north towards Egypt and the Mediterranean Sea, correct? So in this sense, guys, the clashes, which is because of the different political ideology, the followers of the vice president and the president, clashing. The president is Salwa Kiir Mayardit and the vice president is Riek Machar. Very important from exam point of view. There are some tribes in South Sudan, as you can see, Dinka tribes and Nu tribes, and these are the prominent tribes of South Sudan, Dinka and the Nu tribes, correct? So I hope it is clear. So that's all for today, guys. I hope it was understood and it was interesting. Stay tuned. Please press the like button, right? Do like, share, comment, right? That's all for today. See you in the next class. Good day. Goodbye.